Good morning, Flagler. We are here with City Council candidate Shara Brodsky.
Good morning.
You're running for
District 1.
District
City
1.
Council, District 1.
For some of the people who maybe aren't sure of all the different districts, can you tell us which sections is District 1?
Absolutely. It's most of Pine Lakes, down Pine Lakes Parkway.
Okay.
Half of the B section, after the library, and Parkview.
Okay.
Halfway through Parkview.
Okay. So you're all up in that area?
Yes.
Okay. So how long have you lived here in Palm Coast?
This August will be 29 years. I moved here in 1995.
So you've been here longer than the city has.
That has been incorporated. Yes. I've been here most of my life. Yes,
that's pretty cool.
It is cool.
Have you always been involved or interested in politics, or is this a recent development?
Never. Never. This is very recent. I'd say over the last year and a half, I've just kind of touched on some things that interested me. And I thought, what is this all about? And here I am.
Okay.
Here I am.
So when did you realize that you wanted to run for city council? Was there an instance that kind of propelled you into that?
Oh, yes. This is a very interesting story. Last year in August, I went to Greenland, and I was gone for 3 weeks. First longest vacation I've ever taken, and it was the most amazing experience of my life. To see Greenland, I went to Canada, and I realized that there's a whole world out there. And coming back to Palm Coast, it's a little small community compared to most larger cities. And my father is in Jersey, so the last time we left and came back home, I told my husband, I said, I think I want to sell the house and move to Jersey. And he was kind of shocked because that's not what I do. I'm a very stationary, loyal person. And I was ready to put the house on the market. But I signed up for the Citizens Academy way before I left, because you know about the Citizens Academy? I don't know if a lot of people do know. It is a 7 to 8 week program that teaches you all about how the city runs and all the different departments. So it fills up. They do a spring course and a fall course, and they fill up months in advance. And there's about 18 to 20 or so people. It is free to anyone who wants to go.
Okay.
And I had signed up 6 months prior, and I thought, I've already dedicated myself. I am going to continue and take this course. And halfway through, I was in a situation where I thought, I don't know what to do with my life. Am I moving? Am I staying? I don't know what to do. So I prayed and begged God for a sign. And he gave me a very clear sign. We did a mock city council meeting at the Citizens Academy. And there was, again, about 20 of us, and the city clerk handed out a piece of paper to everybody. One was the mayor, one was District 1, one was District 2, 3, and 4. Some were public speakers, some were just had a different position. And I open up this paper, and it says Vice Mayor Danko, District 1. And I thought, oh my God. I opened this paper, and I thought, I look up, I look around. I mean, I could have gotten any piece of paper. I could have been any position. I could have been a public speaker. I could have been the mayor. I could have been, and I said, if I was to ever run, this is the district. This would be the seat that I would be sitting in. So I get up on the council, and I'm sitting in this seat, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, oh my God, is this it? I couldn't deny it. So after that, I went upstairs and filed. And it has been such an amazing ride since, I want to say, October of last year. And sometimes when you try something new in your life and you feel like there's barriers or walls you hit, and you start to question yourself, should I really do this? People question you, why are you doing this? None of that has happened. So I am just enjoying this ride and seeing where it takes me. But yes, that was a very clear sign to me and my mind that I have to do this.
Yeah. So what do you think qualifies you over some of your opponents to sit on the city council and be part of the governing body that oversees the city manager, directs staff, goes over a budget that sits in the $350 million range?
Yes, that is way above my pay grade, but I did go to Daytona State and got my associate's degree in interior design, and then wanted to continue to do architectural. So I have been managing Chey Jacqueline and all of those funds for the last almost 15 years. So I know what it's like to run a small business. I do not own it, but I manage every little aspect of that business. Then I did continue and get my bachelor's of business management through Daytona State. And so I obtained that, and I have been able to maintain and manage money. I mean, the millions are on a whole nother scale, but I know that I am capable and confident that I can do that.
Okay. A lot of people right now, when they're looking at candidates, they want, one of the first questions I hear residents asking candidates is, are you or anyone you are related to connected to the real estate world or the development community?
No, not at all. I am not a real estate agent. I have no family members that are real estate agents. I have lots of friends that are real estate agents because that seems like the number one occupation of Flagler County.
Yeah.
I think there's 1,800 registered real estate.
Something like that.
Yes. So, but no. So I want to go back just a second, Chris, about I have been giving back to the community for the last 10 years, working with Chey Jacqueline, and not only am I involved with 4 nonprofits, I give back to the community already. So I wanted to take that to the next level.
Okay. So now let's talk a little bit about some of the bigger issues that City Council is currently tackling or will be carrying over into the next City Council. Right now, everybody knows that the city is going over their comprehensive plan, the whole Imagine 2050 campaign. So there's a lot of focus on the future right now. They're asking residents for input. What are some of the key points that you think that comprehensive plan needs to focus on?
The 2050 plan or the current one?
The one they're working on, the 2050 plan.
Well, I think that's pretty far into the future, and we've got a lot of issues right now that we need to deal with. So my issue is let's concentrate now and how we can fix it so that we won't have to concern ourselves about 2050 and be where we need to be in 30 years. I mean, I know you want to get into detail about it, but I just feel like there's so many issues now with the comprehensive plan and where our money as taxpayers is being allocated and what we need for this community. And it doesn't seem like they're concentrating on the now, and they're concentrating on the very, very far future.
Yeah. I know the comprehensive plan, it's a requirement that they have to go over and they have to plan for the future. So while tackling current issues and still looking at that comprehensive plan, what areas, how would you help to bring the residents' vision to life in that comprehensive plan for the future if you're elected?
What would I do?
How would you help to make sure that the comprehensive plan follows what the resident input?
Well, I would definitely, I am a resident myself. I am not an entrepreneur, and I will fight for what we need. And like I said, I'm just going to bring it back to now because we need to work on this now. And I don't mind saying what needs to be said and being that advocate for us as residents and what we need as a community as a whole.
Okay. And talking about some of the now issues, during the city meetings, for the last couple of months at least, maybe longer, residents have slowly more and more brought concerns about traffic and the speeds throughout the neighborhoods. And the city did their traffic study over the whole city. And during their presentation, they had said that, yes, there's some recommendations for traffic calming patterns and possibly reduced speed limits, all of which had high dollar ticket numbers on them. So is the traffic speeds in the neighborhood a problem? Should it be a priority on the city's budget for the 2024-2025 fiscal year?
I feel like, again, for living here for so long, you could put the speed limit at 50. People are going to do whatever speed they want. You could put it at 15. If there's no regulation and there's nobody really watching these things, or those speed, what are they called? Those
The different traffic calming patterns, whether they're speed humps or
I know they brought the speed bumps up, and that could be an issue for first responders when they need to get by quickly. I don't know. I'm sure they can do 30 miles an hour or 40 miles an hour over a speed bump rather than a vehicle or a motor scooter. But something needs to be done about the speeding. It is dangerous. We don't have sidewalks. People can't walk on their streets.
do you have in your mind? Do you have a solution that might be better than spending the $6 million or whatever it was on reducing the speed limits from 30 to 25?
That's so difficult to address, I feel like, because how do you, without hiring more deputies and having, say, empty police cars on random streets that people just don't know if there's somebody in there or not, is a little intimidating. So that could help. Putting the speed bumps in, I mean, of course, on a lower budget scale, is to just put empty deputy cars randomly all over the place here and there and take them back, put them back in certain times so that people don't know when they'll be there or not. And that doesn't really cost much money at all because there's plenty of the COP cars that are just sitting in a parking lot that we could use to our advantage.
Okay.
And the traffic lights, they're not, I don't think they're synced properly. I have not spoken to traffic to understand their reasoning on how they have aligned these lights. But coming from a large city, I think that there needs to be some kind of coordination so that the traffic flows better.
So it slows them down a little more.
It does, and you're on a roll, and all of a sudden you got to slow down and stop at another red light. You just passed a green one, and if you keep them all in sync, it just, I would think that it would flow easier and alleviate some of the traffic.
So let's talk about the condition of the roads while we're on the subject.
Okay.
A lot of residents who have lived here or are moving here, especially in some of the older neighborhoods, the roads are starting to show signs of deterioration. I know in previous meetings, Councilperson Pontieri has said that there is nowhere near enough in the road fund to handle all of the road repairs that need to happen. So if you're elected, do you have any ideas on how you plan to help get the monies in place to start tackling that? Because Palm Coast has, I believe, like 1,200 miles of roads in the city, give or take. That's a lot of roads. That's a lot of paving. That's a lot of maintenance. And there's
a lot of city workers.
And the money in the city account is not the same. Like there is just not as much money there as there is roads. So how do you plan to try to bring a little bit more balance to that?
Well, that's what I'm all about, is balance and allocation of the monies. And where is that going? I mean, using a superior product to take care of the roads will save money in the future. So, if you put a better quality of product and use that first, it'll save over the long run. But those issues really need to be addressed because they keep, concerning themselves about the growth and building. But what about the roads that are being used at the moment?
Mm-hmm.
I did do some research, and they said that at the moment, the roads are up to standards. But to whose standards? That's my question.
Mm-hmm. It affects quality of life for residents who are used to driving on a higher quality road. And now they're starting to deteriorate.
Absolutely, especially down some of the residential streets. I've noticed they're not maintained. Do they not know that they need fixing until somebody calls and have multiple calls for the same reason before they actually come out and do anything about it? Because I've noticed there's potholes and they get filled, and then a couple months later they start to deteriorate.
Yeah.
And I think again, and that's with anything. Nobody really wants to spend all that money up front. But if you do put that money up front, you'll save in the long run. So going back to the 2050 plan, putting that money and that allocation into infrastructure on the roads alone, you could remove some of that if you put that money in now. And where to find the funds, that's why I'd like to get into city council so that I can see exactly what's happening and where that money is being spent.
Okay. And kind of along the same breath, we've had the population explode here in Palm Coast. And I've been here for 7 years, so I've seen a difference from when I first moved to where we're at now. But a lot of residents feel like the size of the roads cannot handle the sheer amount of traffic that we have. You're talking Royal Palms Parkway during certain hours, that is backed up for a good long stretch
Oh,
in
yes.
both directions. 100.
100.
There's a lot. I know they've got plans to expand Old Kings Road, but those plans don't have any funding currently. So expansion plans are kind of, do you have any ideas that you plan to bring to the city council to try to help alleviate some of the traffic, whether that's looking in obscure places for funding for roads or whether that's bringing up public transportation? Do you have any thoughts on how we can tackle
That's a really
that?
good question and a tremendous problem, because if growth continues, which it will, that's just part of, life. And if our numbers double and we're already in a problem now, I mean, how much expansion can we do on 100? Put in more lanes? I don't know all those details on an engineering standpoint. Can the roads handle expansion? And again, what kind of products are you using for expansion? You're going to put more lanes in, but how do you plan on, continuing to maintain those? It's a problem. I mean, already it's a tremendous problem. And again, I don't know if it has to do with light sinking, if that would alleviate, because when that BJ's light goes in from I-95 over there on 100, that's going to be some traffic.
Yeah.
And that's just one area alone. That is a really good question that I feel like I cannot answer, because we need expansion. It's not going to stop growing here. Hopefully it'll slow down, after COVID and everybody moving to Florida in general. But it needs to be addressed. And I don't know how I could do that. Of course, I can't do that alone, but it's finding the funds and the proper people to be able to come up with a good plan for this.
Okay. So recently there had been talks where Mayor Alphen had spent months going to Tallahassee to acquire funding for the different needs of the city, with his westward expansion road, with needs for the water treatment plants, the wastewater plants. Water treatment plant 1 in particular is in dire need of upgrades. They were only going to be allocated about $1 million to work on their plant.
Yeah.
It came out that Governor DeSantis had vetoed the money that is going towards water treatment plant 1. A lot of our other infrastructure needs in Palm Coast and in Flagler County as a whole were vetoed. However, the monies for things like the westward expansion road, those have gone through, been approved. Knowing that he did that, he also vetoed the $6 million for the YMCA in Town Center. Knowing knowing how bad our infrastructure is and how bad it will be if it's not addressed, do you feel like the YMCA is a priority that needs to be top of plate for the city council?
No, that is not a priority. I mean, we need a Y, we need a pool, we need something for, we have a lot of recreation, but the water plant, that is something that needs to be addressed. I mean, those are priorities that we need to live. Those things need, Western expansion. There's nobody here yet to even purchase the Western expansion on a residential scale. So why are we even funding that and concerning ourselves when we have a water situation that we need to deal with, that either we run out of water or our water is not clean enough to use? That is a tremendous problem that needs to be addressed ASAP. And that money should have went straight to that as much as possible.
Do you have any plans towards working with the interim city manager, trying to get creative ideas for funding for some of this? Because obviously residents are not going to want to have their utility bills increased even more than they already are.
Absolutely.
To pay for that.
I agree.
So do you have any ideas on where you plan to start if you're elected with this?
We need grant writers. We need to get grants for these issues. I mean, that is just number one priority. I mean, what are we supposed to do? You know, we're building residential homes. We have some serious issues we need to address. And I don't know, I just know that I could be that advocate to speak up for things that need to be addressed rather than just continue to entertain the mayor and what he chooses to do and the money that he chooses to receive for whatever he thinks is necessary versus what's necessary for us as a community.
Okay. While we're on the topic of the water and the utilities, everybody knows that in Palm Coast, the utilities are far from cheap. A lot of people, when they move here, are shocked at how expensive those are. You've gone through the Citizens Academy. Do you have any insight as to why our utility bills are so high, having seen how the water, wastewater departments operate?
So, again, I believe it's all about budget allocation. We during that course, public works was a tremendous issue. I mean, the machinery that we use, your husband, right? I mean, he knows.
Well,
that
he's utilities.
He's okay. So, but just the equipment and the machinery that costs millions and millions of dollars that they are not really receiving to continue to keep up with what we need. I mean, at one of the mayoral candidate forums, one of them stated that instead of waiting until we need a new machinery, or let's back it up a little bit, and when it starts to get a little old and we know that we need to replace it, we should have those funds ready. And I know because I spoke to a gentleman who runs one of those departments, and he said the money is just not there. They ask, they request, they get denied. So it is a vicious cycle that somehow is not working as a unity. And I will be that person to ask questions and speak up. Whether or not how far we can get with the questions and speaking up, that's a whole nother topic. But I know that I could be that person to just say, hey, why? Yeah. Why?
So with the utilities, I know they just had a couple of months back, there were some workshops at the city council where they talked about how they can keep up with the cost of handling the utilities.
Yes.
One of the ways was increasing the rates for citizens. The other was increasing the rates for developers. And city council opted to go the route of increasing the fees for developers. Do you think that's enough, or should that be? What more can be done to take some of that burden off of the residents' utility bills? Because we all know how expensive they are.
Yes, we do.
And it can be a problem for a lot of families who are on a fixed income, lower budget, families with kids.
Absolutely.
It can be a huge issue with knowing whether you can pay your water bill every month.
Yes, as it starts to creep up to the 200s for a family of two and 300s. Yeah, I mean, what is that money going towards? Again, I know that it's a swale issue. What is being done with those utility funds? I know that things have increased. I know inflation has been a tremendous issue, but do we really know where that money is going and being used? To tax, to keep continuing to raise us, how do you expect people to live here? People will move away and move out of here because they cannot afford to live here. And that's not what a community wants. They want residents to live here and children to go to school here. And it just doesn't seem like that's financially an option. Plus, we have no industry here. So, a service industry and making minimum wage, you have to work 2 to 3 jobs. It's impossible. And then you have a whole family on top of it. It's, again, these are all really in-depth issues that need to be addressed. I'm not saying we could change the world in a day, but these things need to be some serious discussions.
So, on the subject of the lack of industry, one thing that Councilperson Pontieri has been trying to advocate for since she's been elected is diversifying the ad valorem tax base, trying to take some of that burden off the residents. Because right now, I believe most people know that about 93% of the tax base is resident funded, with only about 7 being commercial or industry funded. She's been trying to come up with different new and innovative ways to try to lessen that 93% and put more on the business side.
Yes.
Do you have any ideas on how you plan to try to get the tax base a little bit more diversified if you're elected?
Again, those impact fees have been raised a tiny percentage. They need to be raised even more. I don't think they were raised in the last 8 years, maybe 10 to 15 years. I don't know the exact time frame, but all that time that we have been paying as residents when it could have been pushed onto the developers, that has not happened, and that percentage is still way too low. I mean, that's why, of course, they want to come here, is because it costs them very little to come here versus any other larger city. So those, I think, need to be increased for the developers and anyone that's associated with the developers and want to bring. I understand they want to bring industry here, but we also need to make some serious money as residents so that we could, I don't want to say raise the taxes so that we could afford them, but again, figure out where all this money is going and why are we paying so much? How can we afford to live here working on basic salary and trying to eat and get gas? I mean, it's on a national level, of course, but here we are just trying to get by. And that's hard enough as it is.
Okay. And the last question I'm going to ask you is on the issue of the city manager. So we all know that a few months back, Mayor Alphen, with the help of Kathy Hyder and Ed Danko, fired the city manager, Denise Bevins. Do you feel that she was doing a bad enough job to warrant being fired?
I do not. I did meet with her. I was very, very impressed with her background and all of her education of a city manager and what's needed of a city manager. I think I'm just going to go into a little bit of what I think the problem is I've noticed that the residents have to come to the council meetings and come up and speak their little 3 minutes, and whether or not things are addressed behind the scenes, I don't know. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I feel like I want to get on to see behind the scenes what goes on. But why is it the city manager's job to address issues that the council should know of before the residents come and address them? That's one of my issues. You don't know that there's a flooding issue until for months on end you have residents coming and speaking on it, and now you want to do something about it because you didn't know that was happening. I don't know if you live like in a box and you don't go outside and see what's happening in the community, but I don't think that was the right move. I know, thank God, that they decided to wait until the new council has been elected to decide on hiring a new manager, but that was, I think, a really cruel move. You could see by her reaction that day that it was a little unexpected, to say the least. That I don't believe was.
I know that Alphen, Kloufis, and Danko had all been on board with hiring the city manager before they left office.
Yeah. That doesn't really work out for the new office because they're not guaranteed. I mean, the only one that would possibly still be there would be Alphen if he won, but the other two are moving on to commissioner if they win. So how does that give you the right to make decisions for our future in the city of Palm Coast? It's that I do think that was wrong. I thought Mrs. Bevin was phenomenal. I thought she got a lot of heat and got blamed for things, and that may have not been all of her fault. And again, my unity in the community, we need to all work together and figure it out for the benefit and the betterment of our community.
So you're hopeful that they will wait to hire a new city manager until the new council comes in?
I would believe that would be fair.
Well, hopefully that's the way that it goes then.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
we have a few months left in the year,
mhm.
half of it at least, to see what happens, and hopefully they do the right thing.
All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to add that we didn't talk about that you'd like to let the residents know about you, your stance, your campaign?
Yes. So just a few things. I haven't taken any notes and figured out what I wanted to say. I just want to wing it. I did choose to run as an independent, even though the position is nonpartisan.
Mhm.
People are party happy. They will vote party only. I understand that again on a national level, but locally we need to investigate and look at the candidates and choose the best one that will help us the most and who's the most relatable and approachable and genuine. And I feel like I'm guilty of that as well over the last years of not being involved and knowing how important this really is. And maybe because I was younger and I feel like, oh, who cares? But now living here and being in my mid 40s and working full time and managing a business and not being a real estate agent or an entrepreneur, to know what it's like to live here and pay those fees that we pay and be a part of something, we really, really all need to be involved and do our own research. People keep asking me, well, what's your party? And I'm like, well, if I was your party, are you automatically going to vote for me without even knowing anything about me? And I can see their reaction. And when I tell them that I'm an independent, they're like, oh, okay. So they don't have to decide whether or not I'm right or wrong or good or bad based on party.
Mhm.
So that's one of my platforms is do your research, choose the best candidate for your community, not based on a party.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, over the last 8 to 12 years, we have been undivided. Um, we have been divided as a country and humans. We fight each other. We are against each other. We find fault with each other. And COVID did a number on that, but also politics did a huge number on that. And I'm like, can we bring it back to humanity and love people and genuinely want to care and have compassion for other people? And the other thing is, I have been involved with the community before running. So I'm involved with SMART, Animal Rescue, the Garden Club, Palm Coast Lions Club. So giving back is something that I am so involved in and has been so rewarding for me to just give back. And it always just is like a domino effect. And it's so rewarding. And, again, I am not an entrepreneur, but I do manage a business. So I know what it's like for small businesses. The education and the communication between local government and residents has been very nil. I've had a lot of residents ask me, well, since I'm not in your district, can I vote for you? And I said, yes, you can. The entire city of Palm Coast can vote for the council at any
Mhm.
district. And that is something I think there's a huge barrier that a lot of residents don't know, don't understand, and
Mhm.
it is confusing. You do represent your district, but you also represent Palm Coast as a whole.
Mhm.
So they think, well, I can't vote for you because I don't live in your district. And I'm like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Please, do a little bit of research. They said, well, how do I find out about you? And I said, well, the election office, they have all the details. They have all the financial reports. They have your email, your phone number, a picture of you, your bio. And again, I am guilty as well. So now I am enjoying educating people and the
Okay.
public about just what our local government and our residents need to have some communication, whether or not they're going to do their research. I can be that person.
Okay. And obviously, this year, every election year, we have early voting. Do you happen to know those dates?
Yes, of course I do, which is even a little more interesting too. I don't know, most people don't know this. So August 10th through the 17th
Mhm.
is early voting. You can go to the elections office in Bunnell, you can go to the public library, and you could also go to the community center. Besides your mail in ballots, if you have not done your mail in ballots and that's how you choose to vote, you have to re register for your mail in ballots. Make sure that they will be sent to you, which I believe is July 12th. They're being
Okay.
sent out uh, domestically because they do international on July 11th.
Mhm.
They have an election primary day, which is August 20th. So it is possible that any candidate can win the election and take the seat on August 20th and get sworn in December.
Okay.
So a candidate can win if they win 50% plus one in early voting and on election day slash primary day, they can take the seat and they will not be on the November ballot.
Okay.
Which is really interesting. That is how the Flagler County Charter is written. And maybe 90% of voters have no idea about that. That they think, oh, I'll vote for you in November. And I'm like, no, I may not be on the ballot. Nobody may be on the ballot for you to even choose because someone can take the seat during,
Yep.
August. And people are confused also because it's a primary day, but because the council is nonpartisan,
It's open for
it's
everyone.
open for all party voting. So they do call it an election primary day. If no candidate gets 50% plus one of any vote, then the two with the top most votes will go on to the November ballot. So we encourage everyone to vote in August, whether or not someone wins the seat or they just go on to the ballot at least, so everyone has a voice instead
Okay.
of just a percentage of people that only do early voting thinking that they're going to wait until November.
All right. Well, thank you so much
Chris,
for
thank
sitting
you.
with me and
Yes.
answering all of our
Thank
questions.
you.
You guys will be able to find this on Facebook and YouTube, and we thank you so very much for watching.